Welcome to another edition of The Greater Work, the audio outreach of Christ Worker Ministries. Listen in as experienced employee and minister, Sean Gibson brings biblical insights to help you worship God both in and with your labor. Now, let's get to work.
When it comes to a job coming to an end, whether you're laid off or fired, it's going to get you upset. And unfortunately, as a result, you might have the tendency of becoming bitter towards an old boss or a coworker. Regardless of whether you were fired or laid off innocently, it all hurts and it's easy to point fingers. When that happens, you're going to need to forgive somebody. In full disclosure, I've struggled with forgiveness myself. And over the years, I've heard some well-meaning people give me some sage advice on how to forgive. One of those expressions that they gave me was, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That never helped me. But what has helped me over the years in addressing bitterness and unforgiveness issues in the workplace is really getting a new perspective. It starts off with recognizing that God has forgiven you. Did any of us deserve His forgiveness? Of course not. No one ever does. Unfortunately, though, it's easy for us to forget what God has forgiven us of. Once you grasp that, take a moment, get into the Bible, and look at individuals that have had to walk out forgiveness. Look at Joseph's life. This guy was doing his job, and he was doing it with excellence. Joseph, unfortunately, is accused of rape falsely, and he is sent immediately to jail, loses his job, no trial, nothing. And over the course of time, God ends up moving him from the prison to the palace, second only to Pharaoh in ruling over all of Egypt. Look at David. When David was young, he learned that he was destined for the kingdom to rule over Judah and Israel. And over time, King Saul learned that as well. David was very successful. He was young, he was good-looking, he loved God, and already he had developed a history of killing giants. This guy was a mover and a shaker. He was working his way up the corporate ladder and even had a place at the king's table. And that's a high-profile job. But over time, Saul's jealousy proved to become too strong. And eventually, Saul did everything he could to not only get David out of his kingdom, but also to bring an end to his life. And over time, God proved Himself faithful by removing Saul and putting David in the rightful throne over Judah and Israel. Once you get to the point that your perspective aligns with God and His track record, it becomes much easier to embrace the words of Jesus found in Matthew 6:15. If you refuse to forgive others, your Father will not forgive you of your sins. Decide to forgive. Ask God to help you to forgive that person or even those people. You cannot do this alone. Allow God to enable you to forgive. God will work this out, but stay humble and allow Him to fix the situation. You can forgive with God's help, and you can come out the other side better than ever before.
Thanks for listening to The Greater Work, a Christ Worker Ministries podcast. The Greater Work is supported by hardworking listeners just like you. To learn more about Christ Worker Ministries and how you can become part of our growing outreach, visit christworker.org.